Two such people are John Steed, top professional, and his partner, Emma Peel, talented amateur.
24 Avengers episodes were deliberately destroyed, and the people who erased them knew exactly why.
Well, pretty loud, anyway.
Number 10. The judo heroine nobody talks about anymore. Before Emma Peel, before the catsuits, before any of it, there was Kathy Gale, and she hit people. Honor Blackman's Kathy Gale wasn't window dressing. She was a trained anthropologist and a legitimate hand-to-hand combatant, and Blackman personally underwent extensive judo training to make sure every fight scene landed with real weight. This wasn't choreography for the camera. This was commitment. Gale predated every strong female action lead conversation that television would have for the next 3 decades. She walked into rooms and physically neutralized threats at a time when women on British television were largely handed cups of tea and concerned expressions. The industry wasn't ready for her. The audience, it turned out, absolutely was. If British sci-fi history is your thing, subscribing means you get the next deep dive the moment it drops, not 6 months later when the algorithm finally decides you exist.
It's an old English custom to refer to one's wine stock as one's cellar.
Number 9. The title was never about what you think. The word Avengers in the title has nothing to do with a team, a mission, or a government brief. It refers to one man's grief. The show launched in 1961 with Dr. David Keel, played by Ian Hendry, whose fiancée was murdered by a drug gang. The entire premise was revenge. Dark, grounded, procedural revenge. Keel wanted justice. He teamed with the mysterious John Steed to get it. That's where the title comes from, avenging a specific, brutal personal loss. It's a jarring origin to sit with when you picture the show's later years. Champagne, bowler hats, villains with names like Mother, and plots involving killer robots at garden parties. The emotional DNA of the series began in genuine tragedy, the kind of noir-flavored television that British drama did quietly and well in the early 60s. Most fans who discovered the show through Emma Peel reruns never encountered a single frame of this version. They were watching the third iteration of a concept that had already reinvented itself twice. The revenge drama that started everything is mostly gone now, which loops directly back to the opening problem and why those missing tapes hurt more than they might otherwise seem.
She's keeping watch.
Number 8. From gritty crime drama to villain with a weather machine. Consider what it takes to travel from grieving doctor seeks revenge on drug dealers to man in a bowler hat fights a scientist who has weaponized fog. That transformation didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen by accident. The Avengers made a deliberate creative pivot across its early seasons, gradually injecting absurdist science fiction elements into what began as a kitchen sink crime drama. The result was something British television had never quite produced before, a hybrid genre the show essentially invented for itself, which critics eventually labeled spy-fi. Mad scientists, secret societies with inexplicable infrastructure, robotic assassins, plots to control the British food supply. These weren't lapses in judgment. They were a conscious escalation of tone, a choice to lean into the surreal rather than compete with the gritty procedurals already filling the ITV schedule. What makes this evolution remarkable is how completely it succeeded. Audiences didn't rebel, they leaned in. The show discovered something about its viewers that the viewers hadn't fully discovered about themselves, that there was enormous appetite for something smart, strange, and slightly daft, delivered with absolute sincerity and excellent tailoring. Number 7. The rogues gallery that made the show legendary. Every great spy franchise lives or dies on its villains. Bond had Blofeld, the Avengers had everyone else, and the variety was extraordinary. Weather control masterminds, robotic assassins, peculiar secret societies with Byzantine internal logic, mad scientists operating from country estates that should have raised more questions from the local planning authority. The show's antagonists were as carefully conceived as Steed himself. They matched the show's unique tonal register almost perfectly, threatening enough to generate genuine stakes, bizarre enough to signal that the story wasn't pretending to be the real world. The key was that these villains were never played for pure comedy. The actors committed fully. A man explaining his plan to replace the British cabinet with android duplicates delivered that exposition with the gravity of a Shakespearean monologue. The humor emerged from that sincerity, not from winking at the camera. What villain concept from this era do you think held up best? The megalomaniacs with science fiction infrastructure? Or the more grounded conspirators operating from inside the establishment? Because the show gave you both, often in the same season.
Still here?
Number 6. Steed was supposed to be the sidekick. John Steed, the man who became the irreplaceable face of the entire franchise, was written as a secondary character. The show was built around Dr. Keel. Steed was the mysterious government contact who handed him assignments, occasionally raised an eyebrow, and let the doctor do the emotionally heavy lifting. Then Ian Hendry left after the first season, and the production faced a crisis. The lead was gone. The premise, built on Keel's personal vendetta, had nowhere to go without him. Patrick Macnee's Steed, the supporting act, became the foundation by default. It's one of the stranger accidents in television history. The character who defines the show, whose aesthetic, humor, and moral compass became its signature, that character existed for an entire season in the margins. He was the texture, not the story. The promotion forced the writers to excavate what Steed actually was when he wasn't reacting to someone else's grief. And what they found was more interesting than anything the original premise had offered. The dapper spy who seemed to take nothing seriously while consistently saving the country. That version only existed because the lead walked out. Number 5. Leather wasn't a fashion choice, it was an engineering decision. When the production team put Honor Blackman's Kathy Gale in leather, they weren't making a bold statement about female empowerment or counterculture aesthetics. They were solving a practical problem. Leather doesn't crease. When your lead actress is executing judo throws, rolling across floors, and engaging in extended physical fight choreography, fabric costumes become a continuity nightmare. Wrinkled, misshapen, out of position between takes. Leather holds its form through all of it. The costume that became a cultural icon was, at its origin, a production efficiency solution. That said, the effect on audiences was considerably larger than anyone in wardrobe anticipated. The Kathy Gale leather look hit British television at a specific cultural moment. The early 60s, when the entire aesthetic vocabulary of the country was beginning to shift. And it landed like a depth charge. Here's the quiet irony. A decision made to save time between setups helped establish a visual template for the action heroine that fashion designers and filmmakers were still referencing 20 years later. The most practical costume choice in the production became its most imitated one.
No. Not there.
Why not?
Number 4. Diana Rigg quit because of the cameraman's paycheck. Diana Rigg discovered she was earning less than the cameraman on her own show, and she walked. That sentence doesn't need embellishment. Rigg, whose Emma Peel was generating international headlines and driving the show's highest ratings, learned the specific salary disparity and drew an immediate line. She quit. The production, suddenly facing the loss of its most iconic pairing, opened negotiations. Those negotiations resulted in a substantial pay increase. Rigg returned. Emma Peel continued. The behind-the-scenes story adds a dimension to the character that the screen version can't fully contain. Emma Peel was written as supremely capable, self-assured, and unwilling to accept treatment beneath her station. The actress playing her, it turned out, operated on exactly the same terms. There's a specific kind of satisfaction in that parallel, when the person portraying a groundbreaking character demonstrates the same qualities off-screen that made the character groundbreaking in the first place. Rigg didn't posture or issue statements. She walked out. The production blinked. The math changed. That's a clean story with a clean resolution. And it happened because one performer knew exactly what she was worth and refused to pretend otherwise.
Avengers.
Number 3. The catsuit that required a seamstress on standby. Emma Peel's first Emma Peeler catsuit fit so precisely that Diana Rigg had to be sewn into it before filming could begin. Not adjusted, not altered, sewn in, on set, every time. The garment was so form-fitting that conventional fasteners couldn't achieve the required silhouette without disrupting it. The solution was to treat each filming day as a costuming procedure. Rigg would be fitted into the suit with needle and thread, and the structural integrity of the costume was maintained at the cost of the actress's ability to sit down comfortably between takes. It's the kind of production detail that sounds like an exaggeration until you see photographs of the costume and understand exactly how little tolerance was built into the design. Movement was possible, but not comfortable. Extended fight scenes in a garment you've been sewn into require a specific category of professional dedication. The catsuit became one of the defining fashion images of 1960s British pop culture. It was referenced in magazines, imitated in fashion houses, and worn by Halloween costumes for the next 4 decades. None of the people who imitated it had to be sewn in before they could leave the house, which was, quietly, a significant quality of life improvement over the original.
And up top, they're still searching for us.
I feel like the filling in a club sandwich.
Number 2. Steed's umbrella was doing a lot more than keeping him dry. The bowler hat and the umbrella were not accessories. They were the entire arsenal. John Steed's signature look, the hat, the brolly, the suit, concealed a remarkably practical weapons inventory. The bowler hat hid tools and occasionally weapons within its structure. The umbrella operated variously as a sword, a firearm, and a communication device, depending on the script's requirements for that particular week. Steed was, in the most literal sense, a walking armory, dressed as a man attending a garden party. The genius of the design is how it fit the character's philosophy. Steed operated on a principle of plausible deniability. He looked like a gentleman, moved like a gentleman, and carried himself with a studied nonchalance of someone who has never been in danger in his life. The weapons were hidden not just from villains, but from the entire aesthetic premise of the character. Nothing about him suggested threat. That gap between what he appeared to be and what he was actually capable of generated most of the show's best dramatic and comedic tension. Villains consistently underestimated him based on the hat. The hat was usually the last thing they saw. There's a certain elegance in being comprehensively defeated by someone's accessories. Number 1. The tapes are gone, and almost nobody noticed for decades. Here's the full weight of what the opening line meant. 24 of the first season's 26 episodes simply do not exist anymore. 10 more from the second season are also gone. The Avengers, at its origin, is one of the most significant examples of systematic cultural destruction in television history, and it happened not through fire, flood, or war, but through routine budget management. Broadcasters wiped and reused videotape because tape was expensive. The economics were straightforward, and the logic was sound. Programs that had already aired had already served their purpose. No one in 1961 or 1962 was building infrastructure for a future in which anyone would want to watch old episodes of anything. Archive preservation wasn't a consideration. It was a storage cost. That decision, routine, bureaucratic, made without malice, erased more cultural history than most deliberate acts of censorship ever managed. What remains of those earliest episodes is telesnaps, still photographs taken directly from a television screen during broadcast, grainy and frozen, capturing individual frames of episodes that otherwise no longer exist. They're the equivalent of reading a novel, based entirely on the page numbers and a few sentences someone happened to write down. The title of the show, its original premise, its leading actor, all of it launched from a first season that is almost entirely beyond recovery. The revenge story that gave the show its name. The dark crime drama that predated the sci-fi reinvention. The earliest episodes of Patrick Macnee learning who Steed was. Those performances happened once, broadcast once, and were then erased. What makes this genuinely haunting is the trajectory that followed. The show became a major international export, a defining text of 1960s British cool, a franchise that influenced spy fiction for generations. And its beginning is a ghost. The foundation is missing. You can see the building. You cannot see what it was built on. The handful of surviving fragments and those telesnap photographs are all that confirm the building had a foundation at all. Every other fact in this list, the catsuit sewn on set, Riggs' salary stand, Steed's umbrella arsenal, the villain with the weather machine, all of it grew from a first season that 13 episodes of surviving footage cannot fully account for. The show changed television. Its own record of doing so was wiped to save money on tape. Bonus fact: the final episode broke the entire show's reality. The last regular episode of The Avengers was called Bizarre, and it earned that title. Steed and his final partner, Tara King, escape what appears to be a rocket explosion, standard enough for this franchise, and land on what presents itself as an alien planet. 2 moons in the sky, strange creatures, an entirely extraterrestrial environment. The show that began as a revenge drama ended with its protagonists apparently stranded on another world. Then, the twist. It wasn't another world. It was a film set. The entire alien landscape was studio construction, and Steed and Tara walked out of it and into a production facility, debating with mild irritation how exactly to get home. The meta layer is genuinely disorienting. A show built on the premise of British agents protecting reality chose to end with a revelation that the reality they'd been operating in was itself a constructed fiction. Whether that was intentional philosophical commentary or simply the production team having a very good time with their finale is a question the show doesn't answer. It just ends, with the 2 leads slightly annoyed and standing on a studio floor. For a series that began with a murdered fiancé and a grieving doctor, and became something so strange and magnificent over 9 years, that ending feels, somehow, completely correct. What this show actually was, beneath the bowler hats and catsuits and eccentric villains, was a series that kept reinventing itself. From grief drama to spy-fi, from supporting cast to cultural institution, until the tape literally ran out, sometimes in the most literal possible sense. Which fact hit hardest for you? The missing 24 episodes? The salary walkout that brought Emma Peel back? or the final episode that turned out to be a film set all along. Because those three land differently, depending on what you thought this show was. Steed would tip his hat, if the hat hadn't been repurposed as a weapon somewhere around season 4. We'll see you at the next one.